Beyond, and hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond. This one is number 632. Wowzers, what a high number. My name is Max Scoville. I'm filling in for Jonathon Dornbush, who's off at that nasty rat park again, doing all sorts of squeaking nonsense.
That's Disneyland, baby.
Yeah, home of the Anaheim. And I'm joined this week by my good friends Lucy O'Brien.
Hello.
Brian Altano.
Hello.
And joining us from IGN UK, Simon Cardy.
Hello.
Thanks for coming by, man. This is it's great to see you.
It's really fun. I'm having a great time.
Just getting dragged to all these different shows and
Yeah, I did.
One of the things that
we
we were just discussing is that Cardy has a monotonous voice.
Oh, yeah.
But like it makes everything that you say so much more interesting because it's all at one tone.
Yeah, you have to kind of really listen to pick out the information. And a lot of the times there isn't any.
I can't tell if you're constantly messing with me or never messing with me.
Both.
Wow. See, there you go. I don't even know what to make of
There we
that.
go.
Now, let's see. What's going on here? We do have a comment of the week. RMax Gaming says, conspiracy. Brian got Max sick so he could have Jonathon all to himself. Last week, you guys had a nice intimate episode, which was just the two of you.
That's right.
How'd that go? Any
Good.
problems?
It was great. Some would say it was our best episode.
Did you get me sick on purpose?
No, you got me sick the
Did
week
I?
before that. You worked a red carpet, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
That's
I
fair.
did actually see a lot of people saying this is where it's at. 2 people podcasts.
I listened to it on my flight over here.
Oh.
And I didn't fall asleep, so that's good.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
my favorite. My favorite reviews are I didn't fall asleep or I used this to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Those are good reviews. Let's see. Liz says, I'm really enjoying Beyond every week. You all have such great chemistry in every episode. It's a lot of fun to watch, whether it's just 2 of you or all 4. Keep up the good work and great entertainment. Thank you. It's so nice to get nice, friendly comments. That's lovely. That's a very nice thing to hear.
Hope I don't ruin that.
I think we're going to get a lot of angry comments next week. They'll be like, what was up with that man's voice? It made me fall asleep. I don't know. Lucy, do you want to tease the Beyond shirt we're working on?
Oh, yeah. So, yes, I know that the response to my question several podcasts ago where I asked, do you want an elderly Irish woman t-shirt on the IGN store newly launched? Please check it out. You know, some of you were like, no, hell no. I will never touch that with a 10-foot pole. Gross. 800 likes. And then a couple of you were like, yeah, I'd love that. And we listened to, that doesn't. So we will be launching, I'm not entirely sure when, but there is a design for an elderly Irish woman t-shirt. It will be available on the IGN store. Please just check out wait, have you got the URL for that?
Yeah, I do. It's just store.ign.com.
Okay, so yeah, keep an eye on that. I will obviously tweet about it when it's out. I will force all my friends and family to join the elderly Irish woman cult.
That's a really
you
weird
are wearing
thing to have
that.
on a shirt.
You are wearing that shirt.
That's like just really an odd thing to wear.
I really want this to work because apparently it's one of the first in jokes we have on the newly launched store.
It's crazy.
And it's
632 episodes, and it's the first in-joke.
It's like but it's like a test run for in-joke apparel.
St. Patrick's Day is just around the corner,
So
and the elderly do love to wear shirts.
It may be one of our weaker in-jokes, but let's use it as a launching pad for the more established intelligent ones.
Anyway, I think we have other stuff to talk about besides the shirt that we might make. I
think we just murdered in-joke t-shirts forever.
Yep, so much for that idea. Anyway, now it is time for some news crunch. Let's play the noise if I'm not playing the wrong. I think I'm playing the noise.
You're doing great.
It's probably the noise. I think I'm doing fine. Whenever I say I don't think I'm doing that great, people will tweet at me and they go, I think you did just fine. Anyway, it's time to talk about news. This is a really kind of a creepy thing to talk about, but one of the big trends this week is companies pulling out of big gaming events on account of the spreading coronavirus. Namely, Sony backed out of both PAX East and GDC. They had promised to be at all these events ahead of the PS5, and now that's not happening so much. And this is not just Sony. Capcom, Square Enix, pulled out of PAX East, and Kojima Productions ducked out of GDC, which is kind of nuts. What do you guys
EA
make of
as
this?
well.
Yeah.
EA just pulled out.
Yeah, just yesterday. I'm like, I understand because these big global companies, they're coming from all over, not just within the United States. I can't help but feel especially bad for GDC because that's not really a public. It's more of that's a learning convention where people come to learn and people will have already bought their tickets and now it's all kind of turned to custard.
I saw one of our commenters point out that the Kojima and EA probably pulled out of GDC because they didn't have anything new to announce. which is not a thing that happens at GDC.
Yeah,
so
GDC is very different to the E3s and the.
It is a game developers conference. They have like seminars about how to make.
I mean, people will always be angry because that's the world, but it's hard to be angry at people pulling out of events because they don't want to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
The thing that's been kind of kicking around my head, I was talking about this with Jonathan away from microphones, so I'll replicate the conversation here. I theorize there are launch games that would have been available on day one on the PlayStation 5 that will not be available on day one on the PlayStation 5 because of this sort of butterfly effect. I really think that like the GDC is for people outside of the industry, it's probably just looks like a bunch of people talking about ray tracing and sound design and stuff like. There's a lot of that, right? But there's also a lot of like very small studios. Same thing with PAX, meeting up with very big studios and publishers in hotel rooms and suites to try to pitch them on getting their games onto those platforms. And I really think that this is Sony's basically last big push before this fall in terms of all of the the sort of suite of conventions that happens between now and the end of the year. And that's them getting hands-on face-to-face with developers, giving them dev kits, talking about what they can do to entice them onto their ecosystem, what they can do to give them placement on the storefront launch week and highlight them among all the other titles and stuff like that. That is so important right now. And removing those channels on like a face-to-face level is going to have some repercussions. I don't think it's going to be repercussions that we all see. Like, I don't think it'll be things that I think it's stuff that would have happened behind the scenes that will now no longer be happening, that will somehow impact the libraries of these things if they do even launch this fall. Like, we don't really know how big and bad this is going to get. I mean, this is obviously, this is not a viral, a virus expertise show, but like
what?
No, it's barely even a PlayStation expertise show. But the thing is about it is that it's moving quickly, and there's no cure for it, and it's asymptomatic for a lot of people. So getting 30,000, 50,000, 300,000 like Gamescom people in one building seems like a dangerous thing to do right now.
I also think that like one of the if you have never been to a video game convention on this sort of scale, people tend to get sick anyway. Like it's par for the course after E3, right? That you just get this horrific sickness. And I've been speaking to a couple of people who are sort of thinking now maybe they won't go to GDC because like regardless, you're probably going to get sick, the con flu, and I wouldn't want that paranoia like bouncing around in my head.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what's really sort of dangerous and kind of overwhelming about this whole thing is that this does have real world ramifications in business all over the place in terms of where hardware is manufactured. It's historically China.
That's what I was going to bring up next.
Yeah.
We've seen factories closing because of quarantine stuff, and stock market took a bit of a dip because of that, which is like, everything's a little bit connected, and it's, I don't know, it's going to be weird as hell if we're did you guys expect to hear about PS5 stuff by now this year?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are theorizing it's because of price or it's because they're waiting to see what Microsoft do. It might just be linked to this. We don't know. It could be something much more serious. I don't think it's
necessarily directly linked to this, but I mean,
it could affect it, though. But
yeah, it's pretty odd. It's weird.
Yeah, if they're worried about... Oh, sorry.
No, let's go.
No, let's carry on.
I was going to say, I do remember the year the PS4 came out, the first look we got at the DualShock 4 was in a little glass case at GDC, which was, I think it was a little bit later that year. I want to say they kind of moved GDC around. It's not always this early, but I guess it's still a ways off.
Yeah. I mean, the rollout in general for next-gen talk across both of the two major competitors has been bizarre, to say the least, this time around. Things have stumbled out in press releases and official blog updates, and then there's we just got a blog update from Xbox. They were just like, here's all the hardware specs on Series X, and that wasn't in an E3 press conference. That wasn't even like a Game Awards sizzle thing.
No, it was just hard text.
Yeah.
I mean, it was much it's similar to the Wired. The first we heard about PlayStation 5
exactly.
in depth was in Wired, and this felt very much the same way. It's almost like the theater has completely been stripped away.
Yeah, which is like, it's interesting because there was many E3s where they would get out and they would talk about specs, and for the average consumer, they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about, or they'd talk about sales numbers. E3 for the longest time, for the first 15 minutes, was the PowerPoint presentation with pie graphs about user metrics and stuff like that. And I think for most people, they were like, Get to the trailers. So I like the idea of them getting all like the kind of like nerdy Egon stuff over onto the blog, and then just like put out a sizzle reel and show the console.
Like
and
the Venkman stuff.
Put the Venkman stuff front and center, right?
Like, we're used to games getting delayed all the time. Has there ever been a console that's had a release date, but then they've been like, sorry, this is being pushed back?
That's a really good question.
don't
I'm not
remember.
sure.
I mean, the Sega Saturn infamously had it moved up.
Yeah.
Some retailers, which would be, I don't think that's going to happen. But for things getting delayed, that seems odd.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, I don't know exactly how far along either of these consoles are in terms of manufacturing parts for chipsets and all that. I imagine a lot of that starts early, right? Like, I mean, you start securing individual pieces before you start fabricating the larger thing. But once they start heading down the assembly line, it's like, it's a little bit more turnkey. But that it becomes a huge question mark when the country you're doing that in is basically under lockdown because of a giant virus. So yeah.
Who could have anticipated
Nothing. Yeah.
that this is what we would be talking about?
You
in
never know.
February.
Right? Yeah.
But anyway, shifting gears here a little bit, I mentioned the controller under the glass case as a bit of a segue. Some patent stuff popped up that suggests the DualShock 5 might have a pretty weird little bell and or whistle of the ability to detect sweat and heart rate, which is gross and cool. So it says here's some jargon for you. The biofeedback sensor attachment comprising one or more sensors for obtaining biofeedback information arranges such that at least one sensor is in contact with the user's hand during normal use of the controller and an output unit operable to output the biofeedback information about measurements made by one or more sensors.
I mean, to me, like this sort of smacks of the Vitality sensor, whatever it was called, the Nintendo Vitality thing that just disappeared, just was killed, I suppose. But with a way cooler name. And also because the Vitality sensor was all sort of geared towards Nintendo's, health vertical, whereas this feels like this could be really cool for horror games.
This feels like a way for Kojima to make you go to the bathroom in your pants.
The thing I absolutely love about this is that this. So I have a Fitbit HR. It's basically got the heart rate monitor thing on it.
Yeah.
And you can look back on it, and I've talked to friends who've done this too. Like, you can be watching like a movie like Uncut Gems, which is like incredibly tense, and then go back and look at your numbers spiking or something like that. Or like, I went back and I looked at stuff when I was getting the platinum in Bloodborne, and I was just like, oh boy, like that was
mine's just a constant 30.
But so imagine
that sounds dangerous.
Imagine integrating that with a Twitch streamer who has a visual data on-screen readout of not only their own picture-in-picture of them playing a horror game freaking out, but you actually see like an actual thing that's reading its heart rate while they're playing on screen, and you see them fighting a big boss, and it's like like that's awesome visual information.
I love that. I had the same Fitbit, whatever, and I was wearing it when I worked the live red carpet for Shazam when that first came out, and we were about to go live. There's like screaming crowds next to us, and it's being broadcast all over the place. And right before, like literally, I think seconds before, they were like, all right, do both mics work? And somebody goes, in my earpiece. They're like, no, one of the mics doesn't work. And somebody else is like, is there a working microphone? And I checked it afterwards, and there's just this like cartoonish spike where I'm like, are we just about to just get thrown out and be like, one of the microphones is not on. We don't know what we're doing. It went fine, but it was
more visual. You can just, if you cut to the B cam on any junkyard, I'm just actually sweating. I'm not even joking. I've had an interview before I couldn't cut to me because I just looked a mess.
But there's so many in like insane and intense moments that you have while playing video games that are like this very personal connection with, it's not even like you could be playing an easy game but have like basically no health left, or be playing the hardest game in the world and have your last bullet or something like that. There's so many factors and variables that I think that like, and again, this is just a patent. We don't know if this is actually going to make it into final production, but it's such an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Like, my first reaction was like, oh, this is like gimmicky nonsense, but like it's actually it's totally feasible. Like on Ring Fit, they have something where you can put your thumb over one of the IR sensors on the Joy-Con, and after a workout, it'll show you basically measure before and after, and it gives you readouts for each one, and you get individual data. And it's like a little wonky, but it's like it's better than nothing, right? It's like I think there's something here. I think there's something really cool here.
Yeah. It's a little smell-o-vision.
Yeah,
but I like it
for sure. Totally.
I want smell-o-vision more. I just think that'd be hilarious.
It sucks,
especially in VR.
I don't want Bloodborne smell-o-vision.
No, I definitely don't want Bloodborne smell-o-vision.
I think that would
Resident Evil
smell
smell-o-vision.
kind of oaky, wet leather.
But like Overcooked, that'd be amazing.
Overcooked would be a good use of smell-o-vision
until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because like every time you light a fire in that game and it doesn't go out for 7 minutes.
What do you think a raccoon in a wheelchair smells like?
Have you ever
Musk?
Yeah,
Eggs?
right.
I don't know.
Musky eggs. Yeah.
What does burnt lettuce smell like? Tomatoes on fire.
So back to this as as a dumb gizmo. I'm pretty into it. It seems like this sort of like little thing. It's like the touchpad on the DualShock 4, where you don't really use it for much, but maybe you do. Like maybe it can like it. Not to keep harping on Bloodborne, we talk about it every episode because that's all we've been playing, even though it came out 5 years ago, as of next month. But doesn't it have like motion cues for little dances you can do to people? Or whatever? Like, and I forget that. Like, I don't think of the DualShock 4 having any motion controls, and then Dreams was like, hey, friendly reminder, this is like totally a weird in-air stylus you can paint with, which is like, oh, you can utilize that.
Yep.
So it'd be kind of cool if this was one of those things that gets baked in, and maybe some launch games for PS5 have like, oh, if you get too excited, it calls the emergency room or whatever.
The sweat thing is the thing that it's like, why that? Like, you can get all that information from heart rate. You know.
Also, I don't really want like others to know about that.
About your sweat.
About my sweat.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people to know that I'm like these hands are all clammy, like
right?
wet.
Yeah.
Burrito. I don't. Ugh.
Some people just have very wet hands.
Yeah.
It's just the thing.
Like a fishy handshake.
There's like a term for it. It's just the wet.
Our friend
hands.
Ryan Scott has that. He has like very clammy. Is it just like little?
I think he's just in
slam
constant
hands.
ghost fingers.
ghastly terror at all the things
Yeah.
around him. Anyway, shifting gears, we touched on this a little bit, but we got some Xbox Series X specs, which are, again, it's lots of teraflops and jargon. There was a cool infographic that put up on IGN, which shows using JPEGs of existing Xboxes cut into fractions, like explaining, fractions to a child using like apples or pies or something. How many Xboxes are in the new Xbox, which is, I don't really know how some of these things work in spite of doing this for a living, but like when someone's like teraflop, I'm like, I don't know what that means in,
I mean, if you read the breakdowns of it, there is actually one handily published on IGN. Please check it out.
It's really helped, by the way.
But
yeah,
I like the
written
fractions
by
of apples one.
right. Okay, this is less fractions of apples and a little
Is
bit
there
more.
an infographic, a visual guide?
It's a little bit more. If here's what the Xbox Series X will look like. Here's how it will perform in comparison to modern PCs. And I found that really helpful because I think when you hear jargon thrown around like teraflops, etc., it's so opaque. You can't actually put your finger on what that will actually look like, how that will actually perform. And basically, what our freelancer Whitson was saying is that it will perform like a pretty damn good PC from round about 2018. And this is this is actually Dan Stapleton made that tweet, so shout out to Dan Stapleton.
PC elitist.
PC elitist. What Microsoft showed off was very impressive. Essentially, like it was really impressive. I think that we've talked about ray tracing and all that sort of thing. I think Xbox is making the same concessions when it comes to ray tracing that like PS5 is probably going to make as well. One of the things that I was most interested in was the smart delivery system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people have made the good point that it's the least we should expect from these modern consoles, that we don't have to buy a game twice or 3 times or 4 times because we've come to expect that.
I mean, I've been bringing this up on the show for a while now, but imagine what the NPD sales data would look like over the last 7 years if Rockstar had just been like, anyone who ever bought GTA 5 gets it for free.
Right.
And then instead of it being at the top 10 of every best-selling list every single month, there's just like a blog post where they're like, over 1 million users have upgraded from PS3. Like, that's just a weird, it's a weird stat. So the thing is, it's like their smart delivery thing is essentially like, if you buy the game once, it works across all platforms.
First party exclusives.
Yeah, and this announcement happened, and within like an hour, CD Projekt Red was like, by the way, that's how Cyberpunk works. Like, if you buy it now, it'll work on the next gen consoles. And so it got all of us being like, oh, so this feels like the right thing to do. And I think that a bunch of
Like
publishers,
ethically, it's the right thing to do.
Ethically, business wise, it's stupid as hell. Like, to be blunt, it's because they know that they could get people to double dip. They have with GTA, they have with The Last of Us, they have with pretty much every game ever, right?
Yeah.
You've double dipped. Look at how many times I bought Super Mario Brothers for Nintendo, right? Every single platform ever. Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if you had just bought Skyrim once and it did, you know?
I just bought Skyrim once.
A lot of people on PC have that.
Yeah.
I think they did do the remastered for, current gen consoles, and I think like PC users were like, what are you doing over there?
Yeah.
And then they were like, you get it, I guess. So I can't remember exactly how Bethesda handled that, but
it's pretty normal on the Steam side.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the same way that this is, I think Microsoft kind of acknowledging that, this is a PC that has a controller hooked up to it that we sell in a special box in the store.
But I think what the point that you're making is that it's going to be really interesting to see how many third parties opt into this, because you're right. Like, they're just kind of going, all right, well, screw all those billions of dollars that we could have with these, various other.
It's like a good
versions.
It's like a good kind of peer pressure.
Yeah.
Where it's like CD
like the kid saying, "Hey, take that cigarette out of your mouth, fellow 9-year-old."
CD Projekt Red is just like, "Hey, what if like we just ate healthy from here on out?" And there's a guy in the back being like Ubisoft and EA are like, I don't want to eat healthy, you son of a.
So the odd thing with CD Projekt throwing their hat in the ring with that is that they don't really have a library that. It's not like they suddenly are changing their policy. There's not really any place that they could have done this, because The Witcher 3 launched on current gen, not counting Switch. And then prior to that, it was like there was the 360 version of Witcher 2, which launched much later than the PC version, I think.
Yeah.
And then there was Witcher 1 was only on PC. So they've never had anything that's been kind of cross-platform and been like, hey, it's the HD version.
They've always kind of had these ethics, though, didn't they? Because when The Witcher 3 came out, they were like, all DLC, you'll never have to pay for any. Well, the paid DLC, there'll be lots of free updates.
That's actually a really good point.
Had that sort of, not ethics that you only pay once, but they've always been quite kind.
Consumer friendly.
Yeah.
I do think they'll still, and obviously, I just want to state this, they will absolutely, and everybody will absolutely have a standalone next-gen version of these games in a box for people who are getting on the train for the first time, right? Like these people who are just getting into video games for the first time, their first console ever is the Series X, and they want Cyberpunk. I think they'll just make that game. But for the rest of us, if you already bought it last gen and you automatically have it unlocked, that's really awesome. So now Sony has to do this.
Yeah,
they just do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they look bad.
Yeah.
Like,
but
and again, it's bad business, but it's a good ethical thing to do.
But also just on the Cyberpunk front, like that game is launching so close to next gen consoles. It makes sense for CD Projekt Red to get on this bandwagon, because imagine just being like, okay, here's a game of the year, here's a next gen edition,
right?
5 months after it launched on last gen.
Well, I mean, you can apply that to all of PlayStation's exclusives this year.
That's a really good point. So yes, I think it would be an absolute no-brainer for PlayStation 5 to have this service.
It's also like, again, from like, and I'm not justifying the shady business side, but they could also just be like, no, you got to buy it twice.
I mean, friendly reminder that they were the ones who were kind of just the last ones to jump on the Fortnite cross-play thing.
Yeah.
There was that whole conversation where they were like, I don't know, and it was like.
But like, it was cool on day one on PS4 to have stuff like, Flower and, like a bunch of other small little indie games that had basically, they did cross-buy before pretty much everybody else did.
I feel like there was a bigger jump as well than we'll see this time. Like, I bought The Last of Us twice.
Me too.
On PS4, there was the 4K, there was the photo mode, it was the complete edition as well.
That's true.
So it wasn't just a one-to-one of the same game. I could see them doing something similar this time and making you pay again if they could release a DLC like Left Behind at launch.
I wonder if we're going to see a lot more sort of Persona 5 Royal, like Persona 4 Golden type things, where they tack on a word there. And the same way that we got Last of Us remastered, it's like, you definitely did things to it, but like, how much of that is, how much did you add to make it a new product?
I'm very intrigued to see how Rockstar deal with like GTA Online on the new consoles. Do they just give it to people and say, spend money in it?
Well, there's such a massive question around ongoing games heading into next gen. Like, we don't know what anyone's going to do at this point.
I mean, Nintendo's whole philosophy this generation was, these games didn't sell enough last time, so we can justify selling them again, and they're the exact same price. Like something like Mario Kart got it didn't really get like a 4K overhaul or anything like that, but became one of the best-selling games this generation because it launched on a platform that only 10 million people had. And so
Yeah,
I don't know. You piss off a lot more people on the Sony side because you reached a lot more people with your games.
I think my sort of thinking here is that there's been so much goodwill towards Microsoft, and even if the narrative is a little bit skewed, you know, that everyone is going to jump on board this what is it called again? Smart delivery. Not a great couple of words put together.
It's very Amazon.
It is, yeah. It is. You know, I think that Sony I just don't think there's much choice. I think it's now become such a sort of a selling point for the Xbox Series X beyond the teraflops and all that sort of thing. That this is a massive deal that people are talking about, that people are going wild over. If Sony comes out and is like, here's the PlayStation 5, you know, here are the specs.
No, we got a PS3 again, you know.
So it wasn't as big a jump for Microsoft as well, because Game Pass is effectively that anyway.
Right.
You're going to get them. So.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue you'd have an Xbox One again. You remember that famous video of like, here's how you share games.
Right.
And Xbox were just like, our CEO is going to go work at Zynga now. Like that was just like awkward, and they never really bounced back from that. And I don't think that's going to happen this time around, but I do think that this conversation has been entirely dominated by Microsoft so far because Sony has just been quiet, and then pulling out of the events is not helping anything. Them even like Sony pulling out of PAX meant that Naughty Dog pulled out of PAX, which meant that people who were supposed to go hands-on with The Last of Us very, very soon now aren't. And just things that were supposed to be on are just now off, and it's just been a very quiet few months. And so we're all just sitting here being like, you know, there's a really good way to answer all these questions. Just show us what you're making. Just tell us what this thing is.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, until we find out more about these mysterious new boxes, there are some new games finally starting to come out. I believe this next month is going to be, I was sort of looking at the rundown of games. There's a bunch of stuff coming out in March. Yeah. Resident Evil, that's April 3rd. That's not March. That's close.
April 3rd.
Close.
But
it might as well be.
Bad segue. I screwed it up. But we did get a bunch of sort of preview hands-on stuff with Resident Evil Remake. There are sort of a double preview up. Dale Driver talked about Nemesis a bit, and Matt Kim sat down with the game director and kind of poked into what they're doing with Jill Valentine. Cardy, did you check out?
Yeah, I worked with Dale to help him get this done. That sounds really patronising. He wrote it all. Sorry, Dale.
But you got to fight the Nemesis too.
No, I haven't played it yet.
Oh, okay.
But you watched it?
I've seen it, yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
he looks an absolute pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But he's basically, Dale described to me, is...
It's a great box quote.
Yeah, they should do that. If you want that, no fee.
Nemesis is an absolute pain in the ass.
Whoever's reviewing that strapline.
That's actually going to be me.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, great.
Your
reviewing
strapline
it?
done.
I am, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excited. There's your
But-
first sentence.
Whereas Mr. X was kind of slow and he would pop up. You could kind of deal with him fairly easily.
He had a silly hat.
Yeah.
He was an annoying dummy, but he
Yeah.
wasn't a pain in the ass.
I think that,
No.
the fact that you could shoot his head off kind of was the only thing that kind of undermined his gravitas.
It was that, and he would just cold clock you in the face. He wouldn't eat you. He would just be like, pop, bang.
But from the sounds of it, by the looks of it, Nemesis is just relentless. He will just sky drop out of nowhere and then just hunt you down basically for an hour until you or he gives up.
Yep.
Probably you, because he's not going to give up. And so I've never played the original Resident Evil 3, so I don't really know
many
it.
people didn't. So many people went 1, 2, 4.
Yeah.
3 was kind of the lost child on the family theme park outing. I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor.
What does that make Code Veronica though? That's like a child they forgot they even had.
Sort of died in the attic.
Some Port Town baby.
But yeah, it's. I played it once back in the day. I played the others over and over and over and over. Relentlessly.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited by these previews, and I'm excited that it sounds more terrifying in terms of that relentless force that pursues you throughout the game.
Basically, yeah, it looks like Resident Evil 2, but on speed, which sounds good to me.
Yeah.
They added the sort of quick step mechanic, which
Yes.
sounds really nice.
It sounds really useful, especially with Nemesis.
It's a dodge button, basically.
Basically, yeah, Jill does a funky little sidestep lunge from what I've seen.
It's just enough to spice things up. One thing I really liked was it kind of reading Dale's preview. He did talk a bit about how there's a lot of stuff that's it's been changed and tweaked, but not in like a we totally overhauled the whole thing. It's more like very carefully
making those
stuff.
old games more playable, basically.
Right.
The game's getting a demo.
Yes.
Which I think they just announced, which is really cool. I guess for anyone who didn't play 2, because if you did, you can probably guess what you're getting into. If you did, honestly, you can probably skip the demo because you know that you might maybe you know already.
There's
how it
normally some
feels.
cool little Easter eggs in the demos, though. Because I remember when they announced Resident Evil 3, if you went back, they patched the Resident Evil 2 demo, I think, or the start of Resident Evil 2. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And if you went outside, you could hear him, Nemesis, shouting stars.
Yep.
Oh, whoa.
Star. How does he do
I
it?
can't remember if it was in
Stars. Can you do the noise?
No, I've forgotten.
It's like stars.
I know they threw some little notes scattered around about Jill. Like she had left notes in the game. But
I can't remember if it was the demo or they patched the actual game. No.
Yeah, but they were saying that this was developed kind of side by side. It's been in the works for 3 years, so it's not like they finished RE2 and they were like, all right, next. And then they started.
It's similar to how they did the originals. I think 3 came within a year of 2 original.
Yeah.
So I think they've pretty much done
This
the
is
same
like
sort of thing.
sort of my favorite kind of trajectory of like playing a video game is like finding out about it and then getting a bunch of screenshots and previews in a demo and then just being able to play it. Like I feel like the entire cycle here in video game universes has been totally truncated to something that's a lot more, palatable rather than waiting 5 years for something cyberpunk.
Yeah. No, I don't know. You get that hype cycle. It's kind of nice to actually just be like, oh, it's soon enough that I can just look forward to it and just kind of nope out of screenshots and be like, that's fine.
I'm also excited to be reviewing my first, even though it's a remaster. I'm excited to be reviewing my first numbered Resident Evil because I reviewed the entirety of Resident Evil Revelations 2.
Oh, right.
Which we did single reviews and video reviews for.
Wow.
Destroyed me. The game was fine.
Right.
Just not great. And I'm really excited to sink my teeth into something that looks really awesome and is on the same trajectory as Resident Evil 2 Remake.
I was telling Max that one of the reasons I really like the classic Resident Evil versus the Revelation series is that they take place mostly in a contained environment or a set of contained environments, whereas like Revelations will be like, remember that time we fought wolves in Alaska?
Yeah, let's cut to snow.
Yeah, and
and then jump around back to a boat.
It totally yanks you out of this sort of like the sense of like place and setting that
I have a
think
really
Like
weird
does.
aversion to snow levels in games for some reason.
Really?
I find them really dull.
Huh.
Like, I don't know, it's just a weird thing in my head. Like, it's just, I don't know, they all feel the
actually.
same and they're always inevitably going to be crouching through a blizzard to avoid people. And I don't know. It's just a weird thing in my head.
Battling
I'm bored by
against the
snow
wind.
levels.
That actually is that's
That's
a really
why
good.
Uncharted 2 is not, I prefer 3 and 4.
Huh. That's
Were you,
interesting. I mean,
were you a big fan of the snow growing up?
No, I actually almost, no.
You didn't build like forts and
traumatic
stuff?
experience. Yeah, I was stuck on this like Arctic outpost, and then the aliens started taking over people's bodies. It was horrible.
What a drag.
Yeah, Russell was there. It was really weird.
That's
what a
good.
treat.
That's a good mentor growing up.
Now, obviously, we all have our hangups. This is something I wanted to talk to you about, Lucy. You don't do well with puke, right?
It's my worst thing.
Okay, well, I got bad news because apparently there's a lot of barf in.
I know.
RE3.
And I didn't realize that. And like, this is a proper phobia. I've told people throughout my life. Listen, you. Where's the camera? What camera am I looking
Middle
into?
one. Or that one. I don't know.
It's called a metaphobia. It's a real phobia. It's the fear of puke. So it's like, it's not just you puking. It's like if anyone pukes around you, I have like a panic attack.
So that's going to be your nemesis in the game. is
That
the
like
vomit.
exactly like nemesis, schmemesis. I just don't want to see protagonist Jill vomiting all the time. What is the actual sort of rationale behind that? Like that she's eaten something, like when she has a herb or something, she's cured of the
She's just
bacteria.
terrified. She's
so
holding a DualShock and it's getting all the sweat, and they're like, "Gotta vomit."
No, Matt was saying I think that there's these like sewer crickets or something that like stick their tongues in your mouth and then you get poisoned and then you have to like eat the herb to throw up or something.
There's a Chipotle at the start of it.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that part. I'll report back.
Yeah, that's gonna be a weird one. I don't know. I don't know. I don't do well with spiders, and games love to throw those at you.
Yeah, and it's
I
like
love vomit,
puke has finally come to video games, and
I think the only
have to
thing
deal
worse
with it.
than what you just said would be if you had said, "I love puke."
Oh, I literally just said that. But
I'm
yeah,
so
I love
great
it.
with puke. I just love it. Getting all over.
In fact, as in the metaphobe, I've done a lot of study on this. There is actually a fetish called a metaphilia, which is a sexual thing where people like.
Okay, we could also talk about they're making the Samurai Jack game, which is good that they're doing that. But
save that for the Bloodborne
know.
talk later.
do we have anything else to talk about with the Resi stuff?
No, I'm into it. I'm done looking at it. I'm sold. I can't wait for this game.
And it's coming out so soon.
Yeah, people started putting GIFs on GIFs, whatever you call them, on Twitter. It was just Nemesis bursting through. Well, I don't want to see any of that.
Are we gonna see this continue? Like, I feel like we're gonna see Resident Evil 8 soon.
Would it be Code Veronica then 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Canonically,
8
yes.
I would say 8 has got to come soon.
Yeah.
8 would be next, I imagine. I don't know.
I hope so.
The sort of the 7 Biohazard thing, but which we sort of called a remake and kind of was in that it was a house. But like, what if they went back and they were like, all right, let's redo straight up Resident Evil 1, like haunted house mansion nonsense.
I mean, that's what I want because that was my favorite part of 7. In fact, when they actually went outside of the house, I felt like some of the magic was lost.
Yeah, I agree. The first half of that game is
First half, so good.
Yeah.
So wait, you guys want a remake of the of Resident Evil
not
remake?
a remake. That sort of vibe.
But in first person or third person?
I think it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter to me. I think that for me, what sort of Max is getting at is like, there are sort of games that are essentially haunted house games.
Right.
And Resident Evil 2 was one as well. It wasn't technically a haunted house, but it was a haunted, it was a single location that kind of looped in around itself. And was, very labyrinthian and terrifying. And I think that's where Resident Evil is at its best.
It's where 7 lost me, was when it removed itself from all that.
Yeah.
I would totally play a remake of Resident Evil Remake, but with the Resident Evil 2 remake style approach, which is third person.
what I was asking, basically.
Yeah, I'm totally into that.
Because we sort of got that. It was sort of a half measure where they put Resi Remake on PS4 a couple years back.
Yeah, but
that was prior to the proper Biohazard 7, which is like similar themes, but a first person game. And I don't know. I'm wondering if we're going to see like a point where they're like, hey, here's the entire Resident Evil series and you can play it all on PS4. It's all beautifully up-res and everything. Or if they're going to kind of be like, some of these hold up well, they're just fine.
That would make it one of the more reimagined video games, like the original Resident Evil. Because there's been like director's cuts versions of it. There's a DS version that has like touchscreen third person stuff.
Oh, I played that.
Yeah, there's the remake.
It's the Tiger Gamecom.
Yeah, that's actually for 2, which is bizarre. Yeah.
Is that for 2?
Yeah, they did one for Resident Evil 2.
God.
Which is
Game Boy Color.
If we ultimately get on...
There's a canceled version of the original game. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If we ultimately get on the PlayStation 5, like a full sort of reimagined original Resident Evils, not 7, 8, 9, the continuing, but the reimagined set up until 4, because I don't really care about 5 and 6.
What if they went back and fixed them?
I mean, you'd really have to start from scratch, especially when it comes to 6.
It's all first person now. It's in a haunted house.
As long as it's not in the Arctic and you're just puking everywhere, I think we'll be fine.
That actually sounds like a pretty exciting time. What would the puke do in the snow?
Melt it.
Probably, but then
it finds out you're
how
actually in
cold
the
is it?
Amazon, but it's frozen over, and that's the big reveal.
Well, don't spoil
And
it.
the real
Cardy.
enemy is climate change.
This is gold.
What a
Yeah.
all right.
This is
there
why
it
I
is.
write things.
Man, that was like a lot of ideas just out of nowhere. Anyway, we just got a trailer for a new Samurai Jack game, Battle Through Time, which is I think at a glance you might be like, shovelware, but it's from a Japanese studio, which is interesting because it's a American property, heavily influenced by Japanese stuff, now going back to Japan to be developed by devs who worked on Ninja Gaiden DOA games. And it's being headed up by Derek Bachman, who was the writer on the series. And people are pretty stoked on this. This is coming to PS4 and everything else sometime in 2020. They're presumably going to have details at PAX unless they don't. But yeah, I don't know if you guys know Samurai Jack at all.
I
But
don't. I know it's one of those things that people love, but I've just never really paid any attention to.
I've always appreciated it. I've caught a few episodes. It was on when it was on, but it was like I think that aesthetic it looks gorgeous. Like that kind of it's almost like low poly animation where they're like, oh, let's just put this into 3D polygons and stuff. We've been seeing this weird divide where there's all sorts of micro indie games and there's all sorts of big, huge triple, quadruple A, massive video games, and it's like I feel like we kind of watch the middle ground kind of dry up. It's sort of reassuring to see like a small studio.
The double A's.
Yeah, like I would love to see smaller studios get weird with licenses like this.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I honestly, after South Park Stick of Truth came out, I was like, oh, everyone's going to like figure out how to make animated versions of or video game versions of classic animated shows because that's something you can do now. Like I remember playing that game and people walking by and being like, oh, you're watching South Park. And it's like, I'm playing South Park. It was like a bad Atari commercial from the 80s. It's like, this is not basketball. I'm basketball. And it's like, no, it's not. That looks like trash. But South Park like legit looks like the show.
Yeah.
Like, they nailed it. They nailed the animation. The aesthetic is perfect. There's a couple parts that like, you're like, oh, that's definitely a video game, but it mostly just looks like the show. And I'm kind of bummed that didn't become a big trend, that people didn't mind 90s and 2000s animated shows and figure out how to make versions of them like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking that about the first Toy Story game.
Yeah.
Remember? Like, I was like, this is just like the movie. And to be honest, if you compare Toy Story original with the video game, it's not that far off.
No. I mean, that's the weird thing is Kingdom Hearts 3 has better looking Toy Story than the first two Toy Stories do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could play another South Park game.
Yeah, me too.
Can they make another one of those?
I'd like to see I want to see an Aqua
Please.
Teens game. Like just the worst graphics, just like clip art running around. On that note, I wanted to segue into this. Cardy, you reviewed Dreams, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
How do you feel about Dreams now that the sort of dust has settled on that?
I think it's an incredible thing that's very hard to speak about. So why have you asked me to do it? No.
I'll just put you on the spot here. Get creative.
Yeah,
like in Dreams.
get creative like in Dreams. So I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think it's an amazing thing that I understand isn't for everyone.
You spent how many hours in that? Would you say?
Like 35 to 40.
Do you see yourself going back in there? Or you kind of had your fill.
I keep popping back just to see what people have been doing. I've really been creating much myself in the past week or so, just because that game was my life for quite a while. So a little bit of overload on it, but some of the stuff people are already making and now releasing. I know a lot of people because it's been in early access for over a year. People have been spending 8 to 9 months on some things and only just releasing them. Like I did a studio visit to the studio as well, Media Molecule, and they were talking about. They were getting messages from people in the community a week before launch saying we're in crunch, trying to get their things ready for launch of the main game.
It's like, no, don't do that.
Don't do that. It's bad industry practice.
Yeah.
It's like, you can always delay your game for years. We did.
Yeah, but it's more they wanted it to be there. Yeah, they wanted it to be there for everyone, and it's just I think you've talked about it before. It's just the most amazing community of people.
Oh yeah,
and I haven't really seen that change. I feared maybe a massive global launch it would start to get a bit more sour, but from what I've seen, it's still people just helping each other, and it's like you can do anything you want in it. Like you can just. So I had a great moment the other day where I made one of the first things I made in that game was just a really boring wedge of cheese. It was just it looked okay, it looked fine. And then a week ago I checked and someone had used it in their game, and I was like, and it was just the smallest thing. It was just on a plate that someone was holding across the thing. And I was like,
was it Pig Detective?
I helped
was
make
Pig
that
Detective
game.
holding it?
No, it was. I've forgotten the name. I think it might be called Set Meal or something.
Okay,
that's really adorable.
Yeah. And then I checked last week. I just made a soccer ball, and it's not very good. Like the problem about it is it's a ball, but it's not round, and that's where I went wrong with that one.
So
that's the thing.
It's
I've been demanding for FIFA
rugby
for
ball.
years.
I would watch that sport.
Yeah.
Well, the problem
Funny
was
soccer?
I was trying to put
Or football, whatever you call it.
It's football, yeah. It's a white ball with black hexagons, but I was accidentally putting the hexagons in a bit too deep, so they were kind of in so it wasn't round. But then I said 6 people have used it, and including
Like one of those kids' toys where they put the blocks in the ball.
But yeah, basically, and people have been using. Like one person used it for, unsurprisingly, a football game. Probably would, but someone else had just made a thing. And it's a creation called My Brother's Room. And it's just they turned it into a lamp that's hanging from the ceiling, and
oh my
it
God,
glows.
that's the cutest thing
That's
I've ever heard.
amazing.
Yeah, and I was just like,
I love that.
Did that make you guys almost like choke
Yes.
up? That was really sweet. I don't know why.
So
it's really
they turned your
adorable.
soccer
Just
ball
like-
into a lamp and just.
It's just very evocative,
That's
you know.
very beautiful.
Yeah, and I just don't feel like I've felt like that about any other game.
Yeah.
Just create. You can create like I painted a flower, like a not very good pink flower, and someone has used it. I'm like, why are you using that? But at the same time, like, thank you very much.
I love that so much. I went on the other day and I just typed in like food. And this, I should have sent this to you, Max. It was like the most photorealistic rendering of like a hot dog.
Oh, I went there.
Yeah.
I played with that hot dog.
Yeah, and you can basically
There's also the breakfast.
There's like a puppet that you
so
can
good.
put on that he jumps on the hot dog and he jumps in the dipping sauce and all and such, you know, and what have you.
Yeah. No, like I had definitely that sort of like initial hype. I think just seeing exactly how much stuff was on there on like launch weekend blew my mind, and I haven't been on the show in 2 weeks or whatever. But like I thought that was incredible, and I'm so excited to like, I don't know, check in 6 months, a year,
Exactly.
see what that looks like.
And the actual, I don't know if you've spoken about the actual like 2 to 3 hour campaign they launched.
That's what I'm
with,
halfway through.
Well, I won't spoil it, but it's incredible. Like it's so good. The last half an hour is just like, how did you make this in Dreams?
But I love that they made it this. I mean, obviously, it's a showcase of all the types of games you can make, and that's kind of
all
the point
types
of it.
art. It's like a musical as well.
Definitely. But I love that they sort of. It wasn't what I would have expected from here's how you do it, because it's very different to Little Big Planet, I suppose. In that it was really moody and it was about like a down and out kind of like detective. Was it detective? Like a blues player, jazz player. Yeah. But same kind of vibe.
He's kind of really, he's a detective. He's searching for the perfect chord.
Yeah. I love it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, one thing I thought was interesting is I've been keeping an eye on the sort of the PS4 Dreams subreddit, which is interesting because it's sort of off the beaten path. Obviously, there's no Dreams community jurisdiction there, but like seeing that community kind of be like, hey, how do we like work on getting original creation surface? Because obviously the stuff that people click on the most is like, oh, it's Fallout 4 in Dreams or Red Dead Redemption in Dreams or whatever the thing we know, and that's. People click on things they recognize. That's why they keep remaking stuff and making sequels. It's literally how that works. But like, there's obviously original creations that people are showing a ton of love to. So
there's tons of good stuff. And I've not done a great job of explaining how good it is here, but I did. There's the video review if you want to see what you can do in that game. And there's also, I wrote like 3,500 words about it as well. So if you haven't read it, please read it, because there's a lot to it.
I love that this is basically like magnifying like a microcosmic version of the industry at large, where it's like people are crunching and people are having trouble surfacing new IPs that aren't based on existing franchises. And
how
it's
do we
like,
get around these algorithms on the storefront?
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Which is interesting because it's like at the end of the day, there isn't even like a sellable product that they're creating.
No.
I do, and I've said this a bunch of times, but I do truly feel that like this is going to create an entire new generation of video game developers, and like, you know, our kids and their kids will be like playing classic games made by people.
Well, like another anecdote with someone from the studio told me was that someone had made the first ever game they made was in Dreams, and it was really impressive. So someone from the studio got in touch with them and was like, oh, what have you got planned next? We're really interested to see what you're doing. So it's so good. And they're like, oh, thank you. I really enjoyed Dreams, but I've moved on to Unity now, and I want to be a game developer, basically.
Oh, wow.
So, like, yeah, it's just inspiring people.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It's
God,
incredible.
yeah. I played one on there that it kept going. It was, I forget, I think we typed in poop in the search terms, and it was like Mr. Poop's S-wordy day or whatever. It was like something, it was like contains mild swears that are censored or whatever. And it was like, we started up and it's like you're this poop guy, and you're walking around and you go to like a nightclub and it's closed.
What's a poop guy?
Like a poop emoji kind of.
No, like it's surprisingly
like a
realistic.
guy like covered in.
Like the guy from Dogma that they fight. Like
all right.
It's like a poop man.
You're like a turdman.
Like a real
Turdman.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know this sounds juvenile. We're obviously typing in bad words into the search thing to be like, what would come up. It's like I don't know, maybe half-hour long game that has like different levels. Also, really bizarre use of licensed music. Like it dips from like Smash Mouth into like Dr. Dre, and you're like, oh,
I can kind of see Smash Mouth being in a Poopman game.
Yeah.
Only this morning I put on site someone's recreated the first little bit of Simpsons Hit and Run.
I saw that.
Yeah, and it has some. Not only is it in the Spanish language, so you get to hear the Spanish Simpsons, but you can control Maggie and ride Santa's little helper, and when you do that, the theme song from The Sopranos plays.
Amazing.
Yeah, you know, just like on the show.
Yeah,
It's canon.
And yet again, no one thought to say no.
Right.
So it happened.
No, you can watch like the first 6 minutes of Star Wars: A New Hope.
Yeah.
And the crawl, like the kerning is all weird. Yeah. So instead of like there's just like some sentences are much longer, and it's like, well, they built that, and don't worry about it.
Worst thing about that is like the opening crawl. It's like they did it just fine, but also you can't fast forward it. I've shown that to like I was like, wow, that's incredible, and I've sat through it I think 4 times now, and I'm like, all right, you could probably skip that part. It's a bit
you can't fast forward.
It reminds me of a sort of new tool for you remember that was I'm sure that still exists. It was like there was this movie studio who would just make total knockoffs like straight to DVD knockoffs.
No, I just showed Max the poster for Homeward this morning, which is their version of Pixar's Onward.
Right.
Like they've done movies like The Day the Earth Stopped, Transmorphers.
Transmorphers is a big one.
Yeah. God, there's so many. Yeah, they basically went on to like their whole thing was just like the weekend a big movie comes out in theaters, we want a version that you can watch at home. So if you're really dumb when you get to work on Monday and people are like, you see that Transformer movie, and you could be like, yeah, where the robots fight, I seen it. You know, because you had like 14 Coors Lights and passed out in your
we're all
couch.
like, what about like an HD remake of Simpsons Hit and Run? And it's like, close enough. Someone else made it. It's got the Sopranos theme. Why
How about
not?
Asylum Film with Simpsons?
And
Hit and Run?
Maggie has a pistol as well. She can fire.
Sure, yeah.
So she did do that, to be fair.
Honestly, it's good with these remakes. It's important that things get changed.
Exactly.
You know, it's really just add new
Otherwise,
details.
it's just a remaster. You got to put your own twist on it.
We put on one that was called like Escapa de Shrek. I think we just typed in Shrek, and you spawn as like this like human person, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And you walk around this little countryside, and then Shrek, who is 19 feet tall, shows up screaming, and just the second he steps on you, you die immediately. But it's like the loudest thing I've ever heard. My friend saw it, just screamed and spilled wine everywhere. It was really upsetting, and you have to run from Shrek. That's all you do is you just run.
That sounds like a great game.
It really does.
Anyway, the game's been out for like 2 weeks. Like, what does Dreams look like in a year and a half? It's going to be wild. And I can't wait to see what they're going to continue to support that, obviously. Anyway, anything else we've been playing? You guys want to talk about some games? Any stuff?
I got the chance to play a bit of Persona 5 Royal.
And
It's more... I love Persona, and I've played Persona 5 like 1.5 times. I got halfway through a second playthrough, and I was like, I don't need to do this again right now. And I told myself I wouldn't do it with Persona 5 Royal, but then I played something. I'm like, I could do another 120 hours. Because they've added a few, and I know it's a weird one because obviously it's already been out in Japan for a while. So if I really wanted, I could look up the story and see how they've changed everything. But I've decided to not spoil it for myself because there's a new character, Kasumi, who's a gymnast at the school, and she starts at the same time as your character.
Ooh.
I did walk her home to the train station. I lent her my umbrella. That's the kind of guy I am.
Nice.
Is that a euphemism?
No, I just didn't want. It was raining.
Oh yeah, I bet it was.
And
You
then
yelled at for breaking curfew when you got home. You get mad for losing the umbrella.
I had a grappling hook as well.
Okay,
All right.
I'm done talking.
So, for anybody who isn't paying attention, I never got around to finishing Persona 5. But if I were to jump into Persona 5, does it make more sense to jump into Royal? Is it Royal? Royale?
Royal.
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 Okay.
They did call it the Royal for a little while, but they got rid of the duh. Just
That's
like that bit in Facebook that Justin Timberlake's like, cut the duh.
That's a very like
think he
Japanese
did it
thing
with
to do.
Yeah.
There's the beers like the malt, and you're like, all right,
the
very
malt.
formal, yeah. The beef.
I would say it looks like it's more Persona 5 with a lot of good added stuff.
But it's Persona 5.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of tacking a word on there and then having a new version of the game you have to buy.
Exactly.
Pretty sneaky.
Yeah, see what they've done there.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna. If you didn't enjoy Persona 5, or it's not for you, it's not gonna change how you feel about Persona 5. It's just adding more. It's unclear to me at the moment how much there is for someone who's already played it. But I feel like there's a whole new palace. There's the grappling hook, like I said, that you use during palaces.
There's the umbrella.
To get to new at the umbrella. If anyone's getting wet, you can use that. And
Nothing.
and there's new collectibles inside each palace that are called will seeds.
Okay.
And so I was doing Kamoshida's palace, who's the first boss in the game, and he has 3 seeds of lust that you collect.
Oh.
Dirty old man.
I mean, that
The
is
green-
very Persona
the green
5.
lust seed, yeah.
Yeah.
And they all combine to make a crystal skull. So it's Indiana Jones
Ooh.
at the same time. Who knows what's going on?
Lusty
And
lusty
basically, as
skull.
far as you've got to find those 3 collectibles, combine them, and then you can swap those for like legendary items with a new character called Jose.
Oh.
So yeah,
Alright.
they're adding bits, but I'm not sure how much fundamentally the story's going to change. I'm actually more excited by Persona 5 Scramble, although I don't know when we're getting that.
What's that one doing? That's like
That's the one that's like Dynasty Warriors.
That's right, okay.
Crossed with Persona 5.
because I love that Persona is like we're like, oh yes, it's a popular RPG that also is sometimes a dance game and sometimes
The
is
dance games are very
Dynasty
good as well.
Warrior. Yeah,
I'm all in.
Yeah.
But yeah, more Persona is good Persona.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
nice.
And that comes
That
out.
should be on the box actually.
Yeah, Persona 5 comes out. Royal comes out tail end of next month, so that's cool.
Yeah.
A real pain in the ass.
Are you guys playing anything you want to talk about?
No, aside from Dreams, I am currently applying for my California driver's license.
Oh,
Okay.
And I've decided I'm going to do a little, because I've driven a little bit in California. It's unlike driving anywhere else.
it's the Dark Souls of driving places.
It's terrifying driving in San Francisco. And I've decided to,
The AI is better in Dark Souls.
it's true, I've decided to do a little brush. And I know I was playing this last year, but I've decided to jump back into Watch Dogs 2 just to have a little bit of a,
You know,
a play around without.
Well,
Oh,
especially
are you?
because I knew I was coming here, and I was like, I kind of want to be in San Francisco a week early, and I did it. So,
Through
yeah.
the magic of games.
I love that game so much.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured it was a good little sort of testing ground before I have to get behind the wheel
So
of a
when you're
terrifying
when you're
car.
taking your driver's test, make sure when you're approaching a red light to hack it so that it turns into a green light and you can continue driving through it.
Yeah.
And steal someone's money.
Yeah.
Just
if
raise some spikes on the ground.
you hear a police car shouting, "Pull over!" That's
That voice,
yeah.
my God.
That's what I love that NPC.
That woman in that game who was screaming at you the whole time. It made me want to do no crimes at all. What a horrible woman that she was. I don't even know who that was. I probably follow her on Twitter. Like, she's probably a great voice actress.
I
It was me.
wish.
Shout out if you were that woman.
Yeah, that one, I'm sorry, I'm making fun of you, but man, they really had
I think
to do
that's
a lot.
that's like the sound mixer's fault more than anything else. Where it's like let's just for a
Pull
goof,
over.
let's make one of the cops louder than everything else in the game.
And it was probably like an outtake bark, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like she probably it was like one on the cutting room floor and they're like, oh, we need it.
I had to go into the settings in that game and I think I turned like all the voice acting off. So all the cutscenes, they were just like, but when I got pulled over, it wasn't, it was just like, you just heard sirens.
She still made it through somehow. She's the only one. You can't
Yeah, through
turn
your
her off.
PlayStation controller, it comes through the speaker.
Yeah.
That'd be surreal. Brian, you platinum Bloodborne.
I did.
Yay, well done.
I platinum Bloodborne. That was probably my favorite video game achievement ever.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been more proud, like completing a video game. And it was like, I don't usually go for platinums unless I'm like 99% there naturally just by playing a game. I've done that with a couple of Far Cries where I'm like, oh, I ticked off all the little Ubisoft boxes on your big map of fun activities and such. And I only have 2 more to do. And then like, there we go. But for this game, I was like, you know what? Like, this is one of my favorite games of all time, definitely in the top 2. I'm going to go in and finish everything. And the thing is, like, when you play a game like Bloodborne without the intention to platinum it, there's some stuff that you miss, and there's some dumb stuff that you do. And so basically, I was on New Game Plus. I 100% of the DLC. I started doing all the Chalice dungeons underneath, and I realized that one of the trophies in the game to get the platinum is you have to get every item in the game. You don't have to have them all in your inventory, but you have to have held them at least once on your save file for every single one. Canehurst Castle is an optional section of that game where it's basically Castlevania. You go to a big haunted ice castle full of headless screaming women and awful troll men with blowguns, and you beat up this giant, like, frozen king man on the roof.
It's like an
great.
evil Santa Claus with a scythe.
Right? He's like a Krampus, and he gives you a crown when he dies. And like 2 playthroughs in a row, I've gotten this crown, and I've gone back to my house with the doll woman, and I've put it on, and I've been like, it doesn't really do much of a stat boost. I'm trying to level up anyway.
Don't spoil it because you need to do things with it.
No, so I sold it.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you don't want to do that.
You have to not sell it. You have to wear it in front of that king's chair, and it opens up a door that starts a cutscene, which eventually gives you a weapon that you can't get any other way, or I don't think you can. And so
God,
I was
this
on
game.
Yeah, so I was on New Game Plus 3 and like speed run past the first 4 or 5 bosses to get to Canehurst to get the crown again, put on the crown, got the thing, and the trophy popped up. And like I was like,
Did you weep?
Practically. I was like cheering. It was like, the thing is, like, I play a lot of I wake up before like my wife and kid do, and so like I went in the other room and I was like playing video games all morning, and my wife came in and I was like, "Can you take a picture of me in front of the television?" I'm really excited about it. She's like, "What?" She's like, "I have to go do my makeup and get ready for work." And I was like, "Please take a picture of me. I'm really happy." She's like, "Is this thing done now? Are you done with this thing?" And I'm like, "It's over. I beat it. I beat the game. I got the highest. This is the best possible achievement you can get. It's a trophy." And she's like, Here's your picture. Here, I love you. Have a great day.
You're never going to touch that game again now, then?
Not for a while.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I left it in a really good place. The Chalice dungeons, some of the stuff down there. There's one of them. It's called like the defiled, rotted ass of a hole or whatever. They cut your health in half. And there's all these just awful, just rats and such that will like take half your health off with one kick. And I beat that.
Yeah.
Beat all those gross men down there. Yeah, that game.
I got bad news, Brian. I don't think you're done with. I think I'm going to phone you up to come into my Chalice dungeons and help.
I'm down.
Fight the rats.
I'm down. I miss it. I want to go back in there and get beat up.
That's our Anaheim Rat Park.
Yeah.
Anaheim.
Did you have an umbrella though?
There's no umbrella in that game.
No,
that would be such
Doesn't
a
the doll have an umbrella?
It's a parasol.
Yeah,
I think an umbrella weapon where you just like
Tomato,
pop it out
like the penguin.
Yeah.
I'm actually amazed they don't have that. They have all sorts of nonsense.
The threaded cane is sort of like an umbrella.
No, it's not.
Yes,
What
it
did
is.
you use to
It's a
play
cane that transforms.
weapon?
I used the saw blade.
The
Yeah.
best.
I switched between that and the Kirk hammer. The Kirk hammer is so much fun because it's just like a little sword. You stick it in a giant sledgehammer and you can sneak up on those guys with the rock in their hand. They're like,
I have a couple of games like that I'm like 1 or 2 trophies away from. I really should just get them done.
Do you platinum Persona? Is that a tough one? Is that like a?
It's got to be. I haven't looked at it, but
I
I assume it is.
I want to give a very quick shout out to the fine folks at PlayStation Support, because when you beat this game, you get, because it's Bloodborne, you get an exclusive theme, but they have to send you a code for it. And I waited a few days and didn't get the code, so I went on PlayStation Support on their forums, and they have like this pop-up chat box, and this guy was like, "What can I help you with?" And I was like, "I just beat Bloodborne. I got the platinum. I'm really happy, but I didn't get the theme." And he was like, "First of all, congratulations on that amazing achievement. Was it tough?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, it was hard as hell, but it was like, I feel great. Like, I feel like I could kill people right now." I'm like, "You could probably do this. Like, it's totally doable." And he's like, "Yeah, I've been thinking about doing it. I'm like halfway through right now." I was like, "Get back in there, kick that game's ass." And he was like, "Anyway, here's your code. Go to enjoy your theme." And I was like, "Thanks, man." And I filled out the customer support thing, and I was like, "That's the best customer support experience I've ever had in my entire life."
Is that your
Give that man a raise?
Achievement then? Not in life, but
it's up there.
Trophy.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, I realized that I have 2 bosses left in the main story, and I was like, oh, like I did one thing, and I was like, oh wow, like I actually went through and like fought a bunch of bosses this last week, and I was like, I was like, I thought I had like 7 months left with this game, and I might still. It might take me a minute.
Okay,
like,
I'm curious as to what 2 bosses you're talking about, because
there's a special thing at the end of the game where if you don't do it, you only do one boss.
Okay, so I know the 2 that you're talking about.
But
so
I'm
you're
also-
really at the very
I'm
end.
really at the very end, but also the whole thing where like if you have the DLC, and the DLC is very hard, and if you beat the 2 bosses at the end, it kicks you into New Game Plus, and then the DLC gets harder. So I kind of want to go sort of sidetrack and go and do the DLC before I do the New Game Plus.
Yeah.
And then there's all the Chalice dungeon stuff, which I don't think that scales, so it doesn't matter. But I don't know, like it's weird to be like, I will never, someday, I was honestly like, the sort of the rate at which I, may become a father, which is a thing we're talking about, but nothing serious. But like realistically, like, will I ever finish this game versus like, will I become a real grown up? And it's like, I'm like, oh no, that's definitely happening before that. Like I'll probably beat this game before it turns 5 years old, which is next month.
Next month.
Is like,
You will never become a real grown up.
no, I won't, because I will be fighting those tarantulas in the sewer. Anyway, that game is so good, and I woke up my wife at like 6:45 this morning, screaming 3 swear words in a row because I fell out of an elevator 6 times in a row in the game.
Gotta get that blood rock.
Yeah.
Yep, I got the blood rock. Now I got to pick which one of my pretty princess weapons gets to have the lovely gem embedded. We have a wonderful segment here. It's normally called Memory Card, but since we have Cardy here, I think it would
Memory
be
card?
Memory Cardy.
I see
Hold
what
on,
you
play a
did
little jingle first. Do you want to read this here?
Oh, I'll read it. Yeah. This isn't just a memory game for me, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's just a little segment. If you want to send in your own, it's beyond at IGN.com, and it's just your fondest memories of PlayStation experiences.
Nice. This is from Brent. He says, "Hey everyone at Beyond. My memory card is when I was in grade 12. What's grade 12? How old is grade 12?
About 24.
107. Yeah.
It's How old
17?
Are you? 16,
Okay.
17?
17,
Yeah.
18.
It's similar to us. Cool.
It's the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I'd been hyped up watching trailers and getting information for Kingdom Hearts on PS2. My first class was drama, and our teacher had wanted us to recite a monologue to prove grade 12 drama was for us. I hadn't prepared anything and had just beaten Final Fantasy VII over the summer, so I started to recite about Cloud's realization and his backstory about Sephiroth. I was nervous, so my voice was shaky. Just like mine. After... Am I channeling Brent?
You're giving a dramatic reading of Brent's email. I like it.
Afterwards, everyone applauded, and the teacher said it was the best performance of the day and wanted me to stay in the class. After class was over, a classmate came up to me and whispered, "You just spotted all the twists in Final Fantasy VII."
I love this story.
I love it. It's so good.
Also, like, just gigantic windmill dunks on everybody in that class that worked really hard writing something original, and he just like was like, I just beat a video game. You guys want to hear about it?"
But I feel like Brent like went on to become a very good storyteller, because this has all the great beats of a great story, and then the little twist at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for that classmate because like Kingdom Hearts is about to come out on PS2, and he's like, "I'm finally gonna beat Final Fantasy VII." Well, I'm avoiding spoilers. The internet is very slow right now, and there's no social media because it is 2004 or whatever.
I'll go hide in this drama class. No one will dare spoil Final Fantasy. No.
Yeah. Good Lord. We have another segment here on Beyond, which is That One Thing, where we talk about the one little tiny things that just make a game special for you. Again, you can share these. Just shoot an email with the subject line, That One Thing, or memory card, whichever one you're sending in. This one is short and sweet from Alex, who says, "My That One Thing was walking out of the vault for the first time in Fallout 4. I spent the perfect amount of time inside the vault that as soon as I walked out of the vault and saw the full wasteland, I immediately felt that immense feeling of loneliness and overwhelming uncertainty." That's definitely...
It's a magical moment.
Yeah.
I had that with Fallout 3.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Fallout 3 was one of those games that got me like fully sucked back into gaming. Like I think I was in college, and I was watching my friend play, like kind of just glanced over it. It was like the idea of an open world first person shooter RPG that was so like weird and bleak and unforgiving at the same time was like, that's a lot of stuff happened at once.
But like same as me, actually. That's really interesting. I was living with a couple of stoners at the time, and we just kind of shut ourselves in our respective rooms and just got a little feral with it and played that game days on end. I loved it. I wonder what it was about that particular game. I mean, there was a lot of hype behind it, but that was the first time I remember sort of heavily investing in games for a lengthy period of time again.
Yeah, I had the same thing with Fallout 3, where I just got like literally lost in that world very early on and took a wrong turn and was like in a very high level area. And I've told this story before, but there was like this like giant like grunt soldier guy up on a bridge, and he tried to kill me, and he committed suicide. And I took his armor and his like high level gun, and I had just started out the game, and I was like,
That game,
I was like addicted to radiation poisoning. I had a bunch of spoons and like a gun. I'm like, I'm ready to go.
eating potatoes out of a toilet. No, I think that game did a really good job of like, obviously, there's lots of guides and everything out there, and people have played it backwards and forwards, but it did such a good job of obscuring everything that was around you.
Yeah.
Such like the first time being dumped out, and they're like, "What is this place?
Right.
I shouldn't be here."
I remember playing that game, and about 20 hours in, I must have totally missed the hint it gave you that was fast travel. I was walking around all of that.
Oh, that's brutal.
And there's that bit where you have to go through like the metro. And I went back and forth in there like 4 times. Like, this is horrible.
Oh, that makes me want to cry. It's like
it was one. There's bound to be games before that had fast travel, but it's one of the first ones I distinctly remember using fast travel in. But
just navigating those subways was like was just horrible.
Try spending 8 hours and
getting like over encumbered with plates or whatever.
Too many spoons.
And so it was the
old
spoons.
cups.
Yeah, that is a great one thing.
Nice. Well, anyway, Brent and Alex, thanks for writing in. Once again, if you want to send in your memory cards and That One Things, which doesn't sound good pluralized, but that's beyond@ign.com, and of course you can always hop in the YouTube comments. Special thanks to Real Sergeant Tom in the YouTube comments, who's been dropping time codes in there, which is helpful because some people don't want to hear us talk about the t-shirt store, but if you do want to visit the t-shirt store, it's store.ign.com.
I just bought a Beyond shirt. It arrived today in the post.
You want to do a live unboxing? You don't have to.
Be noisy, yeah.
It'd be a lot of people. There's a lot. We have a large ASMR listening base who loves to hear the wrinkling of things.
No.
But yeah, no. Let's plug what we're doing. Cardy, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at Cardy Simon, just like Carly Simon, but with a D.
I get
like
it.
The Bond
Pretty
song.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
And you make stuff over at the IGN UK
I
office.
do. I'm in the office. I'm a video producer, but I kind of like to try a bit of everything because I'm obnoxious.
Nice.
No, I just like to mix it up.
You're a very talented, multi-talented person.
Thank you.
I would personally recommend the video where you audition to play James Bond to the cast and producers of.
That is
so
one of my
good.
favorite
It's
things.
so good.
That was the interview I was talking about where I was too sweaty to cut back because
Well, you were interviewing like Leah Sadu.
in Jamaica in 90 degree heat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it helped. I think it was a good.
It certainly added a certain je ne sais quoi to the
What's
video.
the name of that video? Because I want everyone listening to
I think it's called I auditioned to play James Bond to James Bond.
Yeah.
If you type in IGN Bond audition, it'll
Yeah.
that is one of the best things I'll ever do. I think.
Yeah.
Because it was completely it's a weird story of how it happened. Like, I think like 6 months previously, I just did a random Twitter poll. It's like, should I be the next James Bond? As you do, I was getting interest, so I thought, let's see if fans want it. And then it's actually Joe Scrabble's girlfriend who replied to it saying, I need an audition tape. So Dale, over in the UK office, shot on his phone me doing the signature Bond thing with the bang through a toilet roll. So I posted that on Twitter.
Yeah. Don't reveal too much because it's such a delight.
But then like 6 months later, I'm off to Jamaica to do a Bond junket, basically because no one else could. That's not what I should be doing. But and I get there, I have loads of questions about the new film. They're like, "Oh, just so you know, you can't ask anything about the new film." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, as a backup on my phone, I had that video. I was like, "Well, I've come all this way. I was in Jamaica for one day. I might as well show them this." And yeah, watch the rest.
I think they all liked it. Most of them.
I don't think Barbara Broccoli did.
Yeah, no. Yeah, she wasn't a fan. Anyway, go watch that video.
Yeah.
And of course, you guys do a podcast out of IGN.
We do the IGN UK podcast if you want more of this.
Yeah, and some of us have been on there.
You have?
Yeah.
Did you have a good time? Please
I had
say
a wonderful
yes.
time. No, I love
Yeah.
you guys. It's
I
wonderful.
think we did a quiz that was like describing sex scenes or something.
God, what was
He
it?
described it as a real pain in the ass.
No, that was
In a
one of my-
great way.
Yeah.
I wanted to steal that. Wasn't that trying to guess what movie it was based on?
Oh, based on the parental guidance from
Yeah.
IMDb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
I
Because
think we
people
should-
write mad things.
We should do that with ESRB ratings.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a good idea.
or Peggy, as you guys say it.
Peggy 12.
Have you met
18.
Peggy, I went to school with someone called Peggy.
That's good.
There you go.
Anyway, the rest of us,
Peggy
you can find
18.
us on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. Brian is Agent Bizzle, and Lucy is Luce O'Brien.
That's correct.
All right, and we're all doing stuff here at IGN. Just keep an eye on this fine website or YouTube channel or podcast subscription or however the hell you consume all of the stuff we're constantly churning out. Jonathon will be back after he deals with all those nasty, nasty rats in Anaheim.
There's only two. There's only two of them. There's Mickey and Minnie. There really aren't any
But
other
aren't there
rats.
multiple at once in different outfits? Or did I make that up?
No, there's only one allowed.
Like Safari, Mickey, and then like
Because otherwise they get a, when their tails all get.
like a Rat King.
This was fun.
Anyway, that was the show. Thank you. The end.
Beyond.